We've all been there, right? You think you've hit your limit, you've given it everything you've got, but then later you realize you had so much more left in the tank. It's that feeling of untapped potential, that sense that we have hidden reserves we haven't even begun to access.
Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today on the deep dive. We're going deep into the incredible mindset and experiences of David Goggins, the guy who wrote that intense and often challenging book, Can't Hurt Me.
And this isn't just your typical biography,
Yeah.
it's more like a deep exploration of those limits we put on ourselves, almost like a guide to breaking free from those limitations. Goggins' life is a serious testament to what humans can achieve, starting from a past filled with some really heavy stuff. He transformed himself, becoming a Navy SEAL, an ultra-marathon runner, an ultra-distance cyclist, and even a triathlete. And get this, he dedicated all these insane endurance feats to helping out the Special Operations Warrior Foundation. His story is incredible, from earning military honors to pushing through pain for miles and miles. It offers a unique look into resilience and this relentless chase for peak performance.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. So today we're going to unpack what made Goggins so mentally and physically tough. We'll
Yeah.
look at how he dealt with hardship, not just enduring it, but actually overcoming it. And what's really cool for our listeners, we're going to break down some key lessons that you can take away and apply to your own life. It's like a practical guide to becoming more resilient and achieving that peak performance in whatever challenges you face. We know you want to get the most out of this, learn quickly and effectively, and not get bogged down, so we'll make sure to bring you the most important and usable insights from Goggins' journey.
Sounds good. So let's start at the beginning, the foundation of his life. We need to understand where he came from. He grew up in Williamsville, New York, and it might sound like a peaceful, safe suburban life. But Goggins' reality at home was totally different. It was rough. Yeah, it's hard to imagine, right? This seemingly idyllic setting, and then you read about the violence that David experienced at the hands of his father, Trunis Goggins. It was a constant source of stress and fear, not just for David, but for his mom, Jackie, and his siblings too. I mean, think about being a kid and having to hide the fact that you're being hurt at home, the weight of that.
And Goggins doesn't shy away from detailing the abuse.
Hmm.
He talks about Trunis's behavior, the huge emotional toll it took on Jackie. She tried her best to protect her children and give them some normalcy, but living under that kind of fear and helplessness, it's hard to fathom. Even something simple as going to school became a struggle for young David. He even fell asleep in first grade from exhaustion, imagine that, from all the stress and unpredictability at home. And forget about enjoying simple things like playing outside. He was always worried about hiding the physical scars of his home life. Having to deal with that, having to hide and cope with that kind of trauma at such a young age, it leaves scars.
Yeah, and there's this one particularly violent incident that really stands out in the book. It was a turning point for Jackie. It gave her the strength and the determination to escape Trennis and protect her children. They ended up moving to Indiana, which came with its own set of challenges. David had to adapt to a completely new environment, a new school. He struggled at first, but there was a teacher, Sister Catherine, who really supported him. It takes so much courage to just uproot your life and start over under that kind of pressure.
What's interesting is that later on, Goggins looks back on all this early trauma and talks about the impact it had on him, this toxic stress. And despite all the pain, he focuses on the importance of resilience, especially for young people who are going through similar hardships. It's almost ironic how this incredibly difficult beginning became the, I guess you could say, the foundation for his later accomplishments. And this leads us to the first challenge he presents: to take a hard look at your own struggles, your own past, and try to see it not as something that holds you back, but as fuel, motivation to achieve something great. It's about reframing your past, turning it into a source of strength. So think about it. Think about a struggle in your own life. Can you pinpoint a strength you developed because of it, because of overcoming that challenge? That strength can be your driving force.
It's amazing how, after they escaped and settled in Indiana, this man, Wilmoth Irving, enters the picture. He became such a positive figure for David, almost like the father figure he needed. And he was a huge support for David's love of basketball. It felt like a fresh start, a chapter filled with hope and stability for David and his mom.
But tragically, their newfound peace was shattered. Wilmoth was murdered, and it happened right before Christmas. Can you imagine the devastation? Goggins and his mom were thrown back into a whirlwind of grief and shock. And for Goggins, it brought back those feelings of anger and fear, adding another layer of trauma onto his already difficult life. The sense of safety and security he'd finally found was ripped away again. The impact of that kind of repeated loss, especially as a child, it has to be incredibly difficult to process.
And on top of these personal tragedies, he also had to deal with the challenges of being Black in America. He often found himself as the only black student in predominantly white schools. He experienced racism firsthand, even violence, and this deep sense of isolation. He's very honest about the humiliation he felt, the constant weight of prejudice he carried throughout his school years. It's crucial to recognize how much these societal pressures added to his personal struggles. It wasn't just what was happening at home, it was the world around him, too.
It was during all of this that Goggins took his first real step towards taking control of his life. This is where he introduces the accountability mirror. It sounds simple, but it's about taking a long, hard look at yourself in the mirror, being brutally honest about your weaknesses, and then setting goals to improve. It was his way of owning his story, of shaping his future. The act of facing yourself and admitting your flaws, that's a huge step towards change.
And this commitment to self-discipline, it came directly from that moment in front of the accountability mirror. And it led to some big changes. His grades improved, he got in better shape. These small wins, they paved the way for him to enlist in the Air Force. It was a real turning point for him and a powerful example of how personal responsibility and resilience can help you overcome some seemingly impossible odds.
And this brings us to Goggins' second challenge for you.
Huh.
To actually use the accountability mirror in your own life. He wants you to confront those personal truths, identify both your weaknesses and what you want to achieve. He even says, write them down on sticky notes and stick them on your mirror. That constant reminder, it holds you accountable, it pushes you to make those changes you want to see. So tonight, try it out. What comes to mind when you really assess yourself, your goals?
Goggins is really open about a time after his initial stint in the Air Force when he felt like he'd completely fallen short of his dreams. He was working as an exterminator for Ecolab, a far cry from his aspirations of becoming a pararescue man. He describes feeling lost, wrestling with self-hatred, and struggling with depression. His weight ballooned to almost 300 pounds. It's tough to imagine how that gap between your dreams and reality can affect your self-worth.
It was definitely a low point in his journey. He'd set his sights on this elite career path, and now he was stuck in a job that felt meaningless, constantly reminded of what he saw as a huge personal failure. It's a stark reminder of how life can throw you curveballs, make you feel discouraged, and just drain your motivation.
And then he goes into detail about his experiences in pararescue training, where he ran into some serious obstacles, especially with the water confidence drills. He was terrified during those training sessions, constantly feeling like an outsider, overwhelmed by fear and self-doubt. Even though he managed to complete most of the tasks, he still felt inadequate, and this eventually played a part in his decision to leave the program after discovering he carried the sickle cell trait. It's amazing how a perceived weakness can sometimes overshadow your achievements, make you question yourself even when you're succeeding.
Yeah, this period was marked by a lot of internal conflict for Goggins. He was battling feelings of inadequacy, questioning his racial identity, and feeling like he failed to achieve his military goals.
Yeah.
He's very honest about how self-pity and fear were driving him at the time, which is a crucial point. He had to confront those negative emotions before he could even begin to transform himself. Recognizing those feelings, not burying them, is often the first step towards overcoming them.
And then we come to a turning point in the book, a really transformative experience, Hell Week in Navy SEAL training. Goggins paints this vivid picture of how quickly things could change, from moments of calm to absolute chaos with explosions going off. He talks about the instructors, particularly one called Psycho Pete, leading the recruits through incredibly tough physical and mental exercises, and it's all designed to push them to their absolute breaking points, to strip away everything but their core.
The whole point of Hell Week, as Goggins explains it, is exactly that, to strip away all comfort, physically and mentally, until only the most resilient people are left standing. It's designed to find those who have the unwavering will to become a SEAL, and the high dropout rate, it shows you just how incredibly demanding this selection process is.
And what's really striking in his story is how important mindset is, even more than physical ability. Even in the freezing cold and exhaustion, Goggins and his boat crew second, they found strength in their unity, in their shared defiance against the instructors who were trying to break them. This is where he introduces his concept of taking souls, which isn't about physical domination, but more like a mental strategy to gain an edge over your opponents, even the instructors themselves. It's about mental toughness and outlasting the people who want to see you fail.
Exactly. He makes it clear that the real battle in Hell Week, and in most of life's big challenges, isn't against someone else. It's a battle within yourself, a mental struggle. Taking souls is about mentally outlasting your opponent, outmaneuvering them by showing unwavering will and an unbreakable spirit. It's about refusing to give in to pressure, about projecting an aura of resilience.
He goes into graphic detail about the physical suffering they went through, things like surf torture and being exposed to the freezing ocean water for long periods. And throughout it all, Goggins describes his own internal struggle, this yearning to belong, to be accepted into this elite group. It's a constant mental battle to just keep going, to take one more step, even when your body is screaming at you to stop. The willpower required to override those signals is incredible.
But amidst all that suffering, he also highlights how the group's resilience, their shared acts of defiance against the instructors, became this powerful force. These little victories, like their shouts of defiance and their support for each other, their refusal to break, it led to a collective transformation. By going through such extreme adversity together, Goggins started to understand his true potential, a potential that went far beyond what he thought he was capable of. It really shows the power of connection, even in the face of hardship.
After the intensity of Hell Week, Goggins continues to talk about his experiences in BUDS training. He talks about pushing through incredible knee pain, pain that would have stopped most people, and even training while fighting off pneumonia. It's a testament to his determination, his refusal to let physical pain dictate his future or his pursuit of his goals. Think about how often we let discomfort hold us back.
These experiences are at the core of what the book is about, the absolute importance of mental toughness. He talks about the brutal knot-tying exercise in the pool, the constant confrontations with Psycho Pete, and this realization he has, a turning point. All the hardships he faced in his life had actually built up his mental resilience without him even realizing it. It's like he shifted from seeing himself as a victim to becoming a warrior. That recognition of his inner strength, that was a catalyst for his continued progress.
This is where he talks about developing a calloused mind. It's this idea that by repeatedly putting yourself in tough situations, by overcoming adversity, you actually build mental toughness. It's like a muscle that you train, and it allows you to face future challenges, big or small. And he emphasizes that accepting your past, even embracing it, no matter how difficult it was, is essential for building that strong character. Each challenge you overcome, it's like adding another layer of protection to your mind.
And it's important to remember, this wasn't a smooth, straight path for him. Goggins is very open about the emotional struggles and the self-doubt he continued to face, especially with injuries and the fact that he was about to become a father. He questioned if he could handle the rest of the training, the fear of failure, and the weight of his past. But in the end, he made a conscious decision to face those fears head-on, to silence the doubt and to keep pushing forward. It's a reminder that even the most resilient people have these internal battles.
His eventual graduation from BUDS, he describes it as a mix of intense pride and this lingering sadness. He'd achieved this huge goal, but he also knew that his journey, this journey of self-discovery and overcoming obstacles, it wasn't over. It was a big win, but it wasn't the finish line. It was just another step on a much longer road.
And that brings us to the fifth challenge he offers, the power of visualization. He talks about using it to prepare for obstacles, but he makes it clear that simply visualizing success isn't enough. You have to rehearse the challenges too, the potential setbacks, and combine that with hard work. He believes that effort is what turns those mental pictures into real achievements. So take some time today and mentally walk through a challenge you're facing. Don't just picture winning, picture how you'll handle the tough parts.
Goggins also talks about his decision to participate in the 24-hour San Diego one-day race, and he's upfront about the fact that he didn't train enough for it. At first, he was actually enjoying it, but then the fatigue hit, the pain, and the reality of his lack of preparation set in. It's a good example of how important both mental and physical preparation are when you're taking on something big. You can't just rely on willpower alone.
Yeah, it shows the difference between mental toughness and physical conditioning. He learned the hard way that even with incredible mental strength, your body has limits, especially if you don't prepare it properly. It's a good reminder that we need both, the mental and the physical, to tackle those big challenges.
But he wasn't just running for himself. He talks about his deeper motivation for taking on this grueling race. It was about honoring the memory of his fallen comrades from Operation Red Wings, including close friends he served with. He tells the story of that mission and its tragic outcome, and it's clear how deeply it affected him. It became this driving force, this way to honor their memory and find meaning in their sacrifice. Think about how the memory of others can fuel our own determination, how it can give us that extra push.
He describes this internal battle he fought as he pushed himself through the pain. The doubts crept in, he questioned his motives, and then he had this realization. It wasn't just about honoring his fallen brothers, it was about pushing his own limits. And this is where he starts to draw strength from his cookie jar, a mental collection of his past victories, those moments where he overcame adversity. It's like he pulled out those memories to give him strength when he needed it most.
Despite the agony, Goggins finished an incredible 101 miles, smashing his own limits. And he talks about how the pain he felt became a badge of honor, a symbol of his resilience. And it led him to this deeper understanding of his potential, of what the human body can endure. It was like he redefined what he thought was possible.
This experience leads to the sixth challenge he presents: building your own personal cookie jar. He wants you to remember and even write down your achievements, both big and small. These memories can be a source of motivation and confidence when you face challenges in your own life. Take a few minutes today and write down some of your past wins, no matter how small they might seem. You might be surprised by how empowering it feels.
After the 101-mile race, Goggins talks about how driven he was to earn respect in the ultramarathon community. He was actually disappointed when Chris Kosman, the guy who organizes the Badwater race, downplayed his qualification, basically suggesting he might not be ready. And this fueled Goggins' desire to prove himself, to show them what he was capable of. Sometimes doubt from others can push us further than we thought possible.
Yeah, it shows how much we crave validation, how much we want to improve and excel even after achieving something incredible. For Goggins, it wasn't just about finishing races, it was about pushing his own limits and earning the respect of those around him through hard work and dedication.
So he went into intense training mode, preparing for Badwater. He targeted other qualifying races, including the brutal Hurt 100 in Hawaii, all while dealing with injuries. It shows his commitment, his almost obsessive dedication to reaching his goals, even when his body was telling him to slow down.
His experience in the Hurt 100 is fascinating. He really highlights the extreme physical and mental demands of the race, the pain, the fatigue, the challenging terrain. And it was during this race that he had this major realization. The limits we often think are real are mostly just mental. They're self-imposed barriers that we can break through. And this led to his now famous 40% rule.
That's right, the 40% rule. The idea is that when we think we've hit our absolute limit, we've actually only used about 40% of our true potential. He believes there's another 60% that we haven't tapped into, a reserve of strength and ability, and we can access it if we push past those mental barriers. So think about it. How often do we quit when we still have more to give?
Driven by this new understanding, Goggins went all in on preparing for Badwater. He did extreme heat training, mental conditioning, he faced his fears head-on, and he constantly reminded himself of the strength he believed he had. It was all about mental preparation, self-belief, and refusing to give in to doubt.
And even with the challenges he faced during Badwater dehydration, pain, moments where he almost collapsed, he finished in 5th place. It was a huge accomplishment that solidified his belief in his own ability and the power of the 40% rule. He ends that part of the book by reminding us that there is no finish line when it comes to excellence. It's a constant journey of growth and pushing our limits further and further.
And that leads to his 7th challenge for our listeners: to push past your comfort zone in your daily life. He recommends increasing your physical efforts by just 5 to 10% more than what feels comfortable. He believes that the mental toughness you gain from overcoming those small physical challenges will transfer to other areas of your life. It's like a domino effect. Overcoming limitations in one area can unlock potential in others. Think about one small physical challenge you could do this week that pushes you just a little bit outside of your comfort zone.
Then we get to Goggins' decision to take on the Ultraman, this insane 3-day endurance race. He looks back on his journey from adversity to this point, and his main reason for doing this race, it was to inspire his mother. He wanted to show her what was possible after all she'd been through. It's a powerful example of dedicating your efforts to something bigger than yourself.
His experience in Kona, Hawaii, where the Ultraman takes place, was important because he partnered with the Special Operations Warrior Foundation. It shows his commitment to giving back to the community that helped shape him. And he also admits that even with all his achievements, even with his newfound stability, the impact of his past, it was still there. It's a reminder that our past experiences stay with us, even as we grow and change.
What's crazy is how little he actually prepared for this incredibly demanding race. A 6.2-mile swim, a 261-mile bike ride, and a full double marathon, all in 3 days. He even had to borrow a bike at the last minute and hadn't done much swim training. It shows his confidence and mental resilience.
The swim was brutal. He talks about bad chafing, nausea, and exhaustion. He even questioned why he was doing it, but he pushed through, shifting his focus from winning to just surviving. Being able to adapt and change your goals when things get tough, that's a crucial skill.
He did surprisingly well on the bike leg, moving up to 3rd place by the end of the first day. But the double marathon on the final day, that was a different story. He started strong, but the fatigue caught up to him, and he ended up finishing second, despite running the fastest marathon segment that day. It shows that even the most mentally tough people need to pace themselves and be strategic.
Even though he didn't win, Goggins learned valuable lessons from the Ultraman. He realized the importance of strategy, preparation, and knowing your strengths and weaknesses. It highlights how every experience, win or lose, can teach you something.
After his success in endurance racing, Goggins was assigned to be a Navy SEAL recruiter, and he focused on inspiring young people from underrepresented communities. He wanted to encourage them to challenge themselves and reach their full potential. He even combined his speaking engagements with running events, showing them firsthand what dedication and perseverance can achieve. He led by example, which is so powerful.
This new role really emphasized his belief in hard work and dedication as the keys to success, even more so than natural talent. He talks about making the most of every minute, training hard while being a father, and fulfilling his work obligations. Time management and discipline are crucial when you have ambitious goals.
And then he reveals this health scare. He was diagnosed with a heart defect right before a big race. It forced him to face his own physical limitations and reinforced the importance of adaptability and mental strength when dealing with setbacks. Life throws curveballs, and we need to be mentally flexible to deal with them.
This health challenge leads to his eighth challenge for us, to really evaluate and plan our daily activities to be more productive. He talks about compartmentalizing, focusing on one task at a time instead of multitasking. The challenge is to write down your daily schedule and then analyze it, see where you can improve, make sure you're giving enough time to important things like rest and recovery. So how about you? How do you structure your day? Are there areas where you could be more focused?
In a chapter called Uncommon Among Uncommon, Goggins looks back at his early days as a Navy SEAL. He describes the tough training that turned him into what he calls an uncommon warrior, sharing his memories of combat prep and the unique challenges of being in an elite unit. It's a world where exceptional performance is the bare minimum.
He emphasizes that in such a high-performing environment, constant training, competition, and strong leadership are crucial. Goggins talks about how he excelled in physical training and sought out knowledge in other military branches like Ranger School. He was always pushing himself to be better, to learn more.
He believes that true greatness is not something you achieve, it's an ongoing pursuit. He contrasts those who are content with mediocrity with his own drive to be the best. And it's not about ego, it's about constantly challenging yourself to reach your full potential.
As Goggins set his sights on joining DDGRU, an even more elite unit, he's open about the racism and professional obstacles he faced. This experience led him to redefine his understanding of leadership and the importance of taking responsibility for his expectations and actions. It's about self-awareness and holding yourself accountable.
He stresses the importance of staying uncommon, even among exceptional individuals. It's about self-discipline, constant improvement, and unwavering commitment to your goals. It's about standing out not for the sake of recognition, but for the sake of pushing yourself further.
This brings us to the ninth challenge, the challenge of maintaining greatness. Goggins reminds us that success can be fleeting, and to stay at the top of your game, you need to constantly put in the work. To truly stand out, you need to find bigger challenges, build resilience, and reject complacency. What are you doing daily to avoid complacency in your own field? What steps are you taking to ensure you're always growing?
The book then covers Goggins' attempt to break the world record for most pull-ups in 24 hours. His goal, 4,020 pull-ups, and he wanted to do it to raise money for the Special Operations Warrior Foundation. He felt confident in his preparation even after going through heart surgery. He was driven by both physical achievement and this desire to give back.
It's worth mentioning that during this same time, he returned to active duty with the SEALs and even completed Delta selection, which is incredibly difficult. It just shows his exceptional ability and versatility.
But during the record attempt, he ran into unexpected problems. The pull-up bar they were using wasn't what he trained on, and it caused fatigue in his hands and forearms much faster than anticipated. He pushed as hard as he could, but he had to stop around 2,500 pull-ups to avoid serious injury. He admits he felt like he'd failed.
But Goggins doesn't let failure define him. Instead of giving in to negativity, he chose to view it as a learning experience. He used a technique from his military training called after-action review, or AAR, to analyze his performance and figure out why he didn't reach his goal. High performers are always looking for ways to learn and improve.
Through this self-assessment, he found a few key mistakes. He hadn't trained his hands and forearms specifically for that type of pull-up bar, and he let external distractions affect his focus. So he went back to the drawing board, refined his training, his nutrition, his entire approach. It's about learning from mistakes and coming back stronger.
And his dedication paid off. On January 19, 2013, he did it. He completed 4,021 pull-ups in 24 hours, breaking the world record. It was a testament to perseverance, adaptability, and the power of the human spirit.
He closes that chapter by stressing that failure isn't the end, it's a stepping stone. He wants us to embrace our failures, learn from them, and keep striving for our goals. Real success is about growth and resilience, not just the final outcome.
This leads to his 10th and final challenge. To think about a recent failure or setback in your own life and write a detailed report about it. What went well? What could be improved? What did you learn about your mindset? He wants us to plan for future challenges, using the knowledge we gained from our mistakes. Instead of fearing failure, we should embrace it as a chance to grow.
In the last chapter, What If?, Goggins gets real about his struggles leading up to the 2014 Badwater race. He talks about the toll that years of competition and training took on him, both physically and mentally. But even facing all these challenges, he finds strength in reflecting on everything he'd already overcome.
He mentions a course change for Badwater that added 11 pounds to his racing weight, making an already brutal race even tougher. But before Badwater, he won the Frozen Otter 100K, a grueling race in harsh conditions. This win showed him how resilient his body was, even after heart surgery.
But despite that win, he was dealing with serious fatigue and health issues before Badwater. He had dizziness, muscle spasms, and extreme fatigue. Eventually, he was diagnosed with Addison's disease, which made his training even harder. It's a reminder to listen to your body and recognize when you need to adjust.
It was during this time that Goggins changed his perspective on pain. Instead of seeing it as something to avoid, he started to view it as a source of strength and information. He realized that his past traumas had prepared him to handle physical discomfort. It's about reframing pain, seeing it as a challenge to overcome.
He describes this moment of clarity where he realized that he was the embodiment of all the obstacles he'd overcome. He was living proof of his resilience and determination.
He also made a simple but important discovery. Stretching could help alleviate his pain. This led him to focus on flexibility and long-term health, showing that we should always be open to learning and adapting our approaches.
He talks about his retirement as a chief in the Navy, his new career as a wildland firefighter, and his continued passion for ultra running. He's constantly pushing his boundaries, exploring new challenges.
And the question, what if, becomes a recurring theme. It's what drives him, what fuels his ambition to explore his limits. He sees both success and failure as part of the journey, which is a great mindset to have.
He ends the book by emphasizing the power of self-inquiry, of asking ourselves, what if? He believes this question can free us from our limitations and help us achieve incredible things. It's about challenging the status quo and pushing past what we think is possible.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into David Goggins' life, we've seen how powerful our minds can be, how important it is to build resilience and face our fears.
We've also explored those 10 challenges he presents. Reframing our struggles, using the accountability mirror, embracing discomfort, building our cookie jars, applying the 40% rule, managing our time wisely, striving to be uncommon, learning from failure, and always asking, what if? These are all practical steps we can take to start our own transformations.
So here's a final thought for you. Think of one area in your life where you've accepted a limitation, where you said, I can't do that. Now ask yourself, what if I could? What if you push past that perceived boundary? What might you discover about yourself? Because as David Goggins has shown us, our greatest growth and our most incredible discoveries often lie just outside our comfort zones, waiting for us to be brave enough to explore them.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the mind of David Goggins. Until next time, keep pushing your limits.